Hello and welcome to another March to a Million podcast with your host, Greg DuPont. On this podcast, Greg will discuss preparing for the unexpected. I'm RJ Malyk, and I'm in for Matt Halloran on this podcast. Greg, very nice to meet you, and I'm looking forward to working with you.
Nice to meet you too, RJ. Welcome to the team. And for those out there that are longtime listeners, the absence of Matt Halloran today is really the story that we want to share with you, life's unexpected events. RJ's in for us, not because Matt doesn't want to be here, not because Matt and I haven't had a great time doing this, but because life happened. One of the things that we as estate planning attorneys and financial advisors have the great privilege of is to get to know people and to touch many, many lives. And Matt's life is still, he's not passed away, but
Right.
Matt's had an event in his family that has forced him to stop doing what he loved. And, one day, we didn't share much of Matt's story with you guys, but as a business person listening to this program, you'll understand that Matt was having one of his best years ever. The business that he had built and founded, Proudmouth, which is the producer of this podcast, was growing and growing and growing. And he just ended up this year, he had a very impactful TED Talk, and he had released a new book that we talked about on this show here today. And everything was going fantastic until one day he gets the word that actually he's coming back from a presentation, flying, and his phone was blowing up when he landed. And he realized that they were trying to get a hold of him frantically. And lo and behold, that day changed his life because he found out that his wife became paralyzed from the waist down. And now everything he'd been building is changed overnight in an instance. And RJ, we'll get back to this in a second, because you share with me that you had a similar thing yourself. And I really would love to have you share that with our listeners, because again, it's our privilege to be in people's lives.
Sure.
And one of the things that we can always, we're trying to set plans, trying to create plans, trying to set a North Star for our clients. But many times we lose the forest for the trees, and we don't build in resilience to deal with situations like this.
But that's easy to happen because life happens and you can get distracted. And all of a sudden, things change like that. And that's sort of what happened with my situation. My wife and I actually just came back from a trip visiting her family in Iowa. And it was a great trip. It was a lot of fun. Now, I was telling you, Greg, I'm from Long Island. She's from Iowa. My in-laws are always entertained talking to me and, getting my perspective on life because, being from Long Island, we look at life differently than the fine folks in the Midwest. And it's always fun to have exchange of ideas and perceptions of things. So we had a great trip, love my in-laws, and everything was great. And then all of a sudden I have no energy and I'm losing weight and I'm not doing anything to lose weight. Go to the doctor has no idea what's going on. Did some tests, still can't figure out what's going on. And then one day, my wife wakes me up after taking a nap. She starts talking to me, and I thought I responded. And I can remember this like it was yesterday. She looked at me. She goes, "What are you talking about?" I tried to say something else, and she said, "What are you saying?" It was just coming out gibberish. I couldn't talk. And she's like, "Okay, we're going to the hospital." And then she's like, "Forget it. I'm calling the ambulance." Because I got to a point where all I could say was, "I'm sorry." That's all I could say. So I'm sorry. Took me to the hospital. On the way to the hospital, I had a seizure. Then in the hospital, I had another seizure. This is during COVID. So my wife could not go into the hospital. She had to go home and wait for doctors to call her because during COVID, only patients could be there. She could not. And so it took them 2.5 days, and they figured out that I had a blood infection and damaged my heart valve and went into my brain, caused the stroke. And it was a situation where, to this day, not one doctor can tell me how I got the blood infection.
You never know when life's plan for you is going to be different than your plan.
No.
And I reflect on just the last year, the people in my life. My law partner at the time, in his early 50s, gets diagnosed with aggressive prostate cancer. One of our members of WSN, a fine lady that's persevered. She was a guest on our show a few months ago. At her daughter's wedding, standing over a fire pit, a solo stove, right by that, as her daughter is cutting the cake, she blacks out and follows in towards the fire.
Oh, no.
4th-degree burns, and she's getting life flighted back from her daughter's wedding. It's amazing when you start paying attention to these things out there. And you can't let it paralyze you.
No.
But this is where planning is so important. When we are only focused on retirement planning or tax planning, those type of things, we lose the human element. And for listeners of this program, we're with our 4D estate plan and all that stuff that we're trying to help improve these lives. We always start with the foundation of, does your money support your life in the way you want to live it? And do you have the resiliency to deal with things like this, to be able to absorb that bump? I imagine, well, how many weeks were you out of pocket, RJ, when that happened to you?
I was out of work for about 6 months. I stopped receiving a paycheck from my company after the second month. Fortunately, I was on my wife's insurance, health insurance, and it happened to be a very good policy. And the company she works for does a great job. And we were lucky because it could have bankrupted us. And we're fortunate that a major health issue like this didn't bankrupt us. Because if I was not on my wife's policy and I was on my at the time work policy, we would have had 6-figure debts to pay. And that would have been just catastrophic. So you're right. Planning is so important. Having the right health plan, having the right plan for your future. I mean, you don't think about it, unfortunately, when you're young. And I'm even talking about in your 40s, you're not thinking about it because you're not thinking about the end.
Yeah, and not to say that Matt did not have a plan in place or anything that gives him some additional resiliency to deal with this, but I am going to put in the show notes a link to a GoFundMe site that they've established, because I know many of the people that listen to this program appreciate his voice and appreciate what he's done and would like to help a little bit. And they have to completely revamp the house now for
Sure.
his paralyzed wife, and that's all money coming out of one form or another his pocket. So in the show notes there will be a link to that. But again, this was the whole purpose of this, is not to dwell upon that, but to just reflect, and have people understand. Again, we have this unique role as advisors, as counselors. When people come to us seeking estate planning or financial planning or tax planning, whatever you want to call it, they're looking for guidance. And they may be looking at one ultimate goal, but part of what we try to train with our conversations about the integrated estate planning we do is that if you start looking multidimensional, you're able to build in safeguards against life's curveballs. I like to say that, again, we want our life, we want our money to support our life the way we want to live it. But I add a further statement on that for many of my people when we're talking about the estate plan engagement. We want to make sure that we have the resiliency when life throws curveballs. And if God's plan for us is a little different than ours, and we pass away earlier than we intend to pass away, then I want to leave behind what I leave behind as efficiently as possible without paying Uncle Sam any more than he needs to pay. And that's ultimately the goal of the 4D estate planning.
Absolutely.
RJ, I'm kind of curious as we get to know each other a little bit.
Yeah.
And you know, kind of your we'll call it auditioning, but it's not really auditioning in the sense that yeah, you're a Long Islander,
Yes.
so I'm sure that, and we look like we're same age, similar age. I'm sure that Spinal Tap is part of your movie history,
Yes, it is.
and so I need to ask you a question because if you do accept this role as my sidekick going forward,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like being a drummer in Spinal Tap. It's, you know,
I dodged the bullet once, so I think I'm ready to take on that challenge. So that's funny.
Matt's predecessor had something happen to his family that took him out of the business as well.
Okay. Okay.
So
All right. Well, maybe you and I will have a discussion after. No, I'm kidding.
there is no hazard pay for this job.
No,
RJ.
this is, I mean, it's important what you're saying. I mean, we're, you always have to keep things on a certain level. There's seriousness to life, but there's also times where, you need to have some levity. And, I understand that. But to your point of being prepared, I mean, I think going back to our situation, my wife, fortunately, she's a planner, and we were prepared for what was going on with me, and we were able to get through it. But as you say, if you don't have, even if you do have a plan, things happen that you just don't foresee. And boy, it can really throw you for a loop. And we were fortunate to have a great support system, not only with family, but friends were there. I have friends that were, right there as soon as they found out. They were there to help out, and that's an important thing.
As I was reflecting and which ultimately ended up with March to Million and that commitment. And as I write about in my book, I went through an exercise about, that kind of drove me through pain points in my life and different breakthroughs and things like that. And during that conversation, it dawned on me that this old story that was part of my family, that I almost didn't make it. I was a blue baby, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, wow.
And that's what got me to start thinking and decided that I'm here for a reason, and this is my reason. And realizing, situations like this will happen to my partner, happen with Susan, just life. When you start paying attention, I'm so thankful that I've been blessed with my health, that here I am, I just passed 60 and haven't spent a day in the hospital after those initial hours as a preemie. And very few people get to say that. And there's a reason, because it ain't because of my clean living. But I do contend that part of my daily martini is part of my magic. But that's a story for another day, as you and I get to know each other, RJ.
Absolutely. Whatever you need. And, you talked about Matt. I mean, I met Matt through this company, Proudmouth, and he just is a fun-loving guy who has a great sense of humor and just such energy. I mean, he's a very energetic guy, and I know the whole Proudmouth staff is doing nothing but wishing him the best and hoping everything works out for the best. And support him, because, like I said, his energy. I mean, when he comes into a room, this. When he comes into a room, it just lights up. It just absolutely lights up. I mean, he just has just a tremendous amount of energy, just a thought process that I find entertaining and interesting. He's a smart guy.
So as we'll go on in future episodes to get kind of back to our normal scheduled programming, but I felt this was something that we needed to talk about.
Sure.
And For the listeners out there, the guides that are in them find themselves in the position to be that guide in people's lives. You can be that hero in people's lives, by helping them understand this reality. We're gonna plan for the best, but here is how we build in guardrails to make sure that we have that resiliency. And so, I invite people to renew that spirit of asking additional questions. That's what WSN is all about.
What questions do you think they should be asking?
Well, when someone's coming in talking about, they want to plan for taxes, and this is their end all and be all. Well, first of all, this is all well and good, but what's your plan if there's long-term care? If that happens, we can't let the tax tail wag the dog.
Right.
What's your plan when we end up with husband and wife, and one of them passes away earlier, and we lose that second Social Security? What's the plan? What's the plan if you're still in your working years? What happens if they decide that your time is over before you decide your time is over, and you find yourself 18 months of underemployment? What's your plan for that? And people don't want to go there. But if you can take somebody there and it happens to them, you've just saved that family. And what we're trying to do is bring more value to our relationships. And can there be any more value to a relationship than somebody coming in and saying, and I've had this happen. I'm so glad we had that conversation, Greg, because X, Y, or Z happened. And if we didn't do what you said, we wouldn't have been able to make it through as cleanly as we did. So thank you. And there's nothing that's more fulfilling in our role than getting that type of feedback from our clients.
And, you sent me notes before we started, because this is the first time you and I are working together. And something, if you don't mind, maybe discussing a little bit more, the 4D estate planning model. If you can just briefly go through that may be a good review for people to hear.
Yeah. So as we've talked about in our model, with the tying together the four disciplines, which is the core of WSN, is the 4D estate plan. And for RJ, what we do with that is we don't just have documents, which is a one-dimensional estate plan. For people actually made that commitment, they're going to get that done, and that's great. That's better than not having documents. A two-dimensional estate plan in our world, in our vernacular, is where people have actually created wills and trusts and actually taken the right steps to fund it, to defend their estate from probate and claims that come down the road. The 3D and 4D is when we start taking the bull by the whats, and first determining the reality of our situation. That's 3D, where we get to get a clear picture of what we are and what the implications are. So getting back to the long-term care type of thing. What's the implication of us not having long-term care if that happens? And then the 4D is we've taken it all the way into the realm where we have not only created a rock-solid estate plan from a legal perspective in the documents, but we've got a plan in place to bring in all those disciplines and to be able to deliver that peace of mind, hopefully with enough resiliency that when God's plan for us is different than our plan, the exit's different than it could have been in a better way.
All right. Is there anything else you want to close up with, or that I've missed asking you about?
No, RJ, I just hope that you decide that you are going to be the next drummer for Spinal Tap.
Okay.
And we get to know each other a little bit more in the coming months. And for listeners of the show, again, this is not Matt asking. This is a friend of Matt asking. If you found his input to be helpful to you, enjoyed his repartee with me, there is a link in the show notes to a GoFundMe page. Every little bit helps in situations like this.
I've known Matt. I've worked with his company now for almost 2 years, and my personal experience is the man just has a tremendous amount of energy. He is so positive all the time. I wish him and his family the best through this tough and difficult time. And if you can help out, that would be very much appreciated. And I know he will definitely appreciate it. Anything else you want to add, Greg? How about some contact information for you?
If you want to find out a little bit more about our mission and WSN in general, go to www.joinwsn.com or reach out to me on LinkedIn. Don't always check it every day, but I will get back to you on that. So with that, hopefully we can help Matt's team a little bit too.
Great. And it was it was really nice meeting and working with you. I look forward to working with you again if that's the case. If Matt and his wife get through this quickly and Matt's back where he loves to be, then I understand. And who knows, Greg, when we'll be talking again. But this was an absolute pleasure working with you on this podcast.
Same here, RJ. Take care.
If you've not subscribed to the March to a Million podcast, make sure you do that. If you know of an estate planning attorney, financial advisor, or a client who really needs this information, please make sure you share this podcast with them. So for Greg and myself, who is in for Matt Halloran, we'll see you on the other side of the mic very soon.